When Scrooge awoke, it was so dark that looking out of bed, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the aqua walls of his chamber. He was so endeavoring to praise the darkness with his ferret eyes when the chimes of the neighboring church struck the 4 quarters. So he listened for the hour. To his great astonishment, the heavy bell went on from 6 to 7, and from 7 to 8, and regardless up to 12. Then stop. 12? It was past 2 when he went to bed. The clock was wrong. An icicle must have got into the works. 12. It's just a spring of his repeater to correct his most preposterous clock. It's rapid, a little pulse, but beat 12 and stop. Why is it possible that I can have slept through the whole day and far into the other night? It wasn't possible that anything has happened to the sun. And this is 12 at noon. The idea of being an alarming one. He scrambled out of bed and groped his way to the window. He was obliged to rub the frost off with his sleeve of his dressing gown before he could see anything. He could see a very little then. All he could make out was that it was still very foggy and extremely cold, that there was no noise of people running to and fro and making a great stir, as there unquestionably would have been if night had been off when bright day had taken possession of the world. This was a great relief, because 3 days after the sight of a frost of extinguished exchange paid to Ebenezer Scrooge, or his older, and so forth, would have become a mere United States security if there were no days to come by. Scrooge went to bed again and thought and thought and thought. It was over and over and over. And he could make another. He could make nothing of it. The more thought, the more perplexed he was. Now the more he endeavored not to think, the more he thought. Why these ghosts bother him exceedingly every time he resolved with himself after mature inquiry that it was all a dream. His mind flew back again, like a strong spring release, to its first position, and pressed it the same problem to be worked all through. Was it a dream or not? Scrooge lay in this state until the charm had gone 3 quarters more, when he remembered all on a sudden that the ghost had warned him of the visitation when the bell tolled 1. He resolved to lie awake until the hour has passed, and considering that he could no more go to sleep than go to heaven, this was perhaps the wisest resolution in his power. The quarter was so long that he was more than convinced he must have been sunken into a doze unconsciously and missed the clock. At length it broke upon his ringing ear. The quarter passed. Half past. A quarter to it. The hour itself, and nothing else. Huh! He spoke before the hour bell sounded, which is now did with a deep, dull, howling, melancholy one. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by the hand, not the curtains at his feet, nor the curtains of his back, but these are which his face was addressed. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, and Scrooge started up into the half recumbent attitude, found himself face to face with an unearthly visitor, who drew them as close to it as I am now to you, that I am standing in the spirit at your elbow. It is a strange figure, like a child, not yet so like a child, but as like an old man, viewed through the same supernatural medium, which gave him the appearance of having released from the view and being diminished, not to the child's preparations, its hair and fur, which hung about its neck and down its back, as white as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderest bloom was on his skin. The arm was very long and muscular. The hands the same, as if its whole were of uncommon strength. Its leg and feet the most deceptively formed, like those upper members, bare. It was tunic of the purest white, and round his wrist was a band of a lustrous belt, the sheen of which was beautiful. It held a bunch of fresh green holly in its hand, and a singular detraction of that wintry emblem had its dress trimmed with summer flowers. But the strongest thing about it was that from the crown of its head were sprung a slight clear jet of light, by which all this was visible, and which was doubtless the occasion of its using, in its duller moments, the great extinguisher for the cap, which it now held under its arm. Even this, though when Scrooge looked at it with increasing steadiness, was not the strangest quality, for its belt sparkled and glittered, now one part and now in another. And what was this light when it existed, and another time was dark, so the figure itself fluctuated in its distinctness. Bring now the thing with one arm, now with one leg, now with 20 legs, now a pair of legs without a head, now a head without a body, of which dissolving parts, no outline, will be visible in a dense gloom wherein they melted away, and in the very wonder of this, it will be itself again, distant and clear as ever. Are you the spirits whose coming was foretold to me? I am. I see you're seeing things, so much of it. You feel like you're just pounding because you saw a ghost. Oh, It's just some sort of a big thing of it. It's just some lot of it that I can never take up with it. It's just feel like you would mind if you just turn off the light that you had. I is certain about my own carrying Gary, toss everything you know and just feel like making so much of it. Like light as I can be. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just asking questions. I just don't know. I never seen some. Wait a minute. You must be one of the ghosts of the Christmas that he told me, right? Oh, you mean the Christmas ghosts? Yeah. You are one of them, right? Yeah. Who and what are you? I'm the ghost of the Christmas past. The long past? No. Your past. Wait, what? Would you so soon put out? It's it's just something that I never think of it. You know what I mean? What do you mean my past? Would you so soon put out with worldly hands the light that I give? It's not enough that you are one of those whose passions made this cap and formed me through the whole trains of years to wear it low upon my brow. Wanted? Is that what you mentioned? Your welfare. Your welfare. It takes things a lot more effort to be. Take my hand and rise and walk with me. It would have been in vain for Scrooge to appeal that the weather and the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purpose. That bed was warm, and the thermometer was long way below freezing. That he was clad but lightly in his slippers, dressing gown, and a nightcap. That he was had that he held an opening upon. That he held a cold upon him at that time. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made towards the window, collapsed his robes in his supplication. I'm immortal and liable to fall. Bear but a touch of my hand there, and you shall be upheld in more than this. Where we're going? To your past as we go. As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall and stood upon an open county road with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished. Not a vestige of it has to be seen. The darkness and the mist had vanished with it, for it was a clear, cold winter day upon snow on the ground. Whoa! 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 Uh-huh. Wait! Whoa! Whoa! Uh. Good heavens! Do you remember this? Yeah, I do. I was a bred in this place. I really am. I was a boy here. Your lips is trembling. What is that upon your cheek? Nothing. It's just something in my eye that makes me come out of me. You know what I mean? It's just I remember something. You were collected this way. Remember it. I can walk in blindfold. Strange to have forgotten, if for so many years. It's been a while since you know. A lot of things take it ordinary. Let us go on. They walk along the road, Scrooge recognizing every gate and post and trees until a little market town appeared in the distance, with its bridge, its church, and winding air, and winding river. Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting towards them with boys upon their backs, who called to the other boys in county gigs and charts, driven by farmers. All these boys were in great spirits and shouted to each other until the broad fields were so full of merry music that the cross air laughed to hear it. These are but the shadows of things that have been. They have no consciousness on us. Wow. The Johnson travelers come on. As they came, Scrooge knew and named them, every one of them. Why was he rejoiced beyond all bonds to see them? Why did his cold eyes glisten and his heart leap up as they went past? I remember them. I remember every single one of them. These were my schoolmates of mine. Your school. Perhaps we can show you a place. Where is your school that you remember? Yeah. Show me the way. As they parted across at crossroads and byways. As they parted at crossroads and byways for their several homes, what was Merry Christmas to Scrooge? Out upon Merry Christmas, what good had it ever done to him? Oh, I know this. This was my school. It's not quite deserted. A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left here still. Yeah, I remember that. It's something I take. They left the high roads, a well-remembered lane, as soon approached inside the school. It was more than like an old, abandoned school. It was dark and cold, and some of them had damp and mossy. Their windows broken and their gates decayed. Boughs clunk and shutters in the stables, and the coach houses and sheds were overrun with grass. Nor it was more retentive of its ancient state within. For entering a dreary hall and glistening through the open doors of many rooms, they found them poorly furnished, cold and vast. There was earthly savor in the air, the chilly breeze, bareness in the place, which associated itself somehow with too much getting up by candlelight and not too much to eat. They went. The ghost and Scrooge across the hall to the door at the back of the house. It opened before them and disclosed long, bare, melancholy room, made bare still by lines and plain deals form a desk, and one of those a lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down upon a form and wept to his poor forgotten himself as he used to be. Not a lent an echo in the house, not a squeak, a scuffle from the mice behind the paneling, not a drop from the half-thawed one sprout in a dull yard behind, not a sign among the leafless broths of one disboned popular, not the idle swinging of the empty storehouse door, no, not a clinging in a fire, but fell upon the heart of Scrooge with a softening influence, and gave the freer passage to his tears. The spirits touched him on his arm, and pointed to his younger self, intent upon his reading. Suddenly a man in foreign garments, wonderingly real and distant to look at it, stood outside the window with an axe struck in his belt, and leading by a bridle of Inez laden with words. Why, it's El Baba. It's dear, honest El Baba. Yes. It's some more mature. Seems like I'm not interested in it after all. Why, it's El Baba. It's a dear, honest El Baba. I know him. One Christmas time. It seems like on purpose. One Christmas time, when yonder solitary child was left here all alone. It's like some sort of big thing of it I ever recognized. Because if then, I just really wanted to take so much gratitude. Because I remember that one time. I know. Ali Baba. The honest Ali Baba. But when yonder solitary child was left here all alone, he did come for the first time, just like that, poor boy. And Valentine. And his wild brother Orson. There they go. What's his name? Who was put down in his drawers asleep at the gates of Democritus? Don't you see him? And the Sultan's groom turned upside down by the genie. There's a lot of things I take of it. I'm cool. I know. I just take things so much of that. I've seen it every time whenever I take the bit. It just feels like it's that kind of simple within enough. What business had he had to be married to the princess? To hear Scrooge expanding all of the earnestness of his nature on such subjects, in the most extraordinary voice between laughing and crying, and to see his heightened heated and excited face would have been a surprise to his business friends in the city. Indeed, there was a parrot, green body, yellow tail, with a thing like a lettuce growing out of the top of his head. There he is, poor Robin Crusoe. But he come home again after sailing. To a lot of things like that, there's just big differences. It's just that kind of a simple enough. Is that so? It's no wonder you had to take things so much of it. I just feel desperate because you just feel like you a lot of take things so much gratitude whenever you feel so like you're forgotten. Yeah, indeed. Poor Robin Crusoe. Where have you been, Robin Crusoe? The men thought he was dreaming, but he wasn't. It was a pirate. You know, there goes Friday, running for his life to the little creek called La Hoopolu. Poor boy. I wish I could help him, but it's too late now. What's the matter? Nothing. Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night, and I should like to have given him something. But that's all. I just kind of do really want to give him that kid. I like the way how he sings, though. Let's see another Christmas, shall we? Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words, and the room became a little darker and more dirty. The panels shrunk. The windows cracked. Fragments of plaster fell out of the ceiling, and the naked lath were shown instead. And how all this was brought about, Scrooge know no more than you do. He only knew that it was quite correct, that everything had happened so, and that he was alone again. All the other boys had gone home for the holly jolly holidays. He was not reading now, but walking up and down despairingly. Scrooge looking at the door, looking at the ghost. Scrooge looking at the ghost, with a mournful shaking of his head, glanced anxiously towards the door. Ebenezer! Ebenezer! Oh, dear brother. I have come to bring you home. And home. Home, little friend? Yes. Home, for good and all. Home, for ever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be. That home like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home. And he said, yes, you should. And he sent me the coach to bring you, and you being the man. And you'll never come back here. But first, we're to be together all the Christmas long and have the merriest time in the world. You're quite a woman, little friend. She clapped her hands and laughed and tried to touch his head, but bring too little laugh again, and stood on tiptoe to embrace him. Then she began to drag him in her childish eagerness towards the door, and he, nothing loath to go, accompanied her. Oh man, that woman. This is a lot of things to take up with her. That little Franny. I remember that time when she told me about it. She's gonna take me home. Always a declining creature, whom a breath might have withered. But she had a large heart. So she had. You're right. I would not be grievous, spirit. God forbid. She did die as a woman, and had, as I think of it, children. One child. True. Your nephew. Yes. Take me to somewhere else. Of course. We got another visit that you remember. Although they had, but that moment, left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of the city, where shadowy passengers passed and repassed, where shadowy carts and coaches battled for the way, and all the struggles and tumult of the real city were. It was made plain enough by the dreaming of the shops. And there were two. That here too, it was Christmas time again, but it was evening, and the streets were lighting up. To go stop in certain warehouse door. Do you know this place? Know it? I was an apprentice here. This used to be where I worked before. Why, it's all fizzing. Bless his heart. It's fizzing alive again. Yo-ho! There, Ebenezer! Dick! Wait, whoa-ho! This Dick Willikins, to be sure. Bless me, yes. There he is. He was very much attached to me. Was Dick. Poor Dick. Oh, dear. Yo, my boys! There's no more work tonight. It's Christmas Day. No more work tonight. It's Christmas Eve. Dick. At Christmas, Ebenezer, let's have a shutter-ups. Before the man can say Jack Robinson's. You wouldn't believe how those two fellows went at it. They changed into the streets with the shutters. 1, 2, 3 held up in their place. 4, 5, 6 buried them in the pin of them. 7, 8, 9 came back before you could have got to 12. Panting like racehorses. Hally ho! Clear the way, my lads. We got let's have lots of rooms here. Hally ho, Dick. Cheer up, Ebenezer. Clear the way, clear the way. Ha ha ha! There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away, or could have been cleared away. With old Fizzlewing looking on, it was done in a minute. Every movable was picked off. As if it was determined with the public life of evermore, the floor was swept and watered. The lamps were trimmed. Fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was a snug and warm and dry, and brought a ballroom as you could desire to see upon a winter night. It came a fiddler with a music book and went up to the loafed desk and made it to orchestra of it. And unlikely 50 coach stomach aches, and come Mrs. Fizzwing. One visit Mitchell smile, and came the three Mrs. Fizzwings, beaming and lovable, and came of the 6 young fellers, whose hearts they broke. They in came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaids with her cousin, the baker. In came the cook with her brother peculiar friend, the milkman. In came the boy from over the way who was suspected of not having board enough with from his master, trying to hide himself behind the girl from the next door, but one who was prior to have had ears pulled by her mistress. They all came, one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling, and they all came the middle and up again, around in vicious stage of affectionate grouping. Old Tom came always turn up to help them. When this result was brought about, old Fizzwing, clapping his hand to stop the dance, cried out, "Well done!" And the finger plunged his hot face into the pot of porter, especially provided for that purpose, but scorning rest upon his reappearance. He insistently began again that there was no dancers yet, as if the other fiddlers had been carried home, exhausted, on his shoulder, and he were the brand new man resolved to beat him out of sight or perished. There were more dances, there were more forfeits, and more dances. There was cake, there was negus, and there was a great piece of cold roast, and there was a great piece of cold boiled, and there were mince pies, and plenty of beer. But the great effort of the evening came after the roast and boiled, when the fitter, an awful dog mind, sort of man who knew his business better than you or I could have been him, struck up. "It's Sir Roger de Coverley. Ho!" Then old Fizzwing stood out to dance with Miss Fizzwing. Top couple. 2. With a good stiff piece of work to cut out of him 3 or 4 and 20 pair of partners. People who are not trifled with, people who would dance and had no notion of walking. But if they have begun at twice as many, 4 times, Miss Old Fizzwing would have been much of them, and so he would Mrs. Fizzwing. As for her, she was worthy to be his partner in every sense of the trim. If that's not high price, tell me higher, and I'll use it. A positive light appears to issues from Fizzwing claps. They show in every part of a dance like moons. They could not predicted at any given time what would have become of them next. And when old Fizzwing and Mrs. Fizzwing had gone all through the dance, advanced and retired, both hands to your partner, bowing crustily, corkscrew, thread the needle, and back again into your place. Got. Hold up. When the clock struck 11, this domestic bell broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fizwing took their stations, one on the either side of the door, and shaking hands with every person individually. As he and she went out, wish him or her a Merry Christmas when everybody had retired. But the two penitentially, they did the same to them. And thus the cheerful voice died away, and ladies were left to their beds, which they were under the counter in the back shop. This whole time, Scrooge had acted the man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene and his former self. He commemorated everything, remembered everything, enjoyed everything, and under what the strangest education. It was not until now, when the bright faces of his former self and Dick was turned from them, and he remembered the ghost, and became conscious that it was looking full upon him when a light upon his head burned very clear. A small matter to make these silly folks so full of gratitude. Small? That's something that you never know about it. Like, there's something that you take up with it. It just seems like you take things so much of that. Yeah. There are a lot of reasons you take up with this type of world. You remember everything and remember a lot of things you can take up. It just feels like everything seems so different, sis. What? Why is that not? There are a lot of things of it. He spent but a few pounds of your mortal money, 3 or 4 perhaps. There are a lot of things so much of it. It just feels like it's that kind of simple. Is that so much to detecting these deserves of it, like it all that type of matter? It feels like it's that something little more differences. But sometimes it just feels like there's a lot of it. Isn't that? It just feels like there are a lot of it take up. Isn't it that? Isn't that the spirit? He has a power to render us happy or unhappy, to make us our servants light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toll. Say that his power lies in this world and looks up in things so slight and insignificant that it's impossible to add a court them up. What then? The happiness that I can give up with is something a little more mature? Maybe. What's the matter? Rather peculiar. Something that I think. No, I should not like to be able to say a word or two to my clock just now, that's all. My time has grown short. My time has grown short. Quick. This was not addressed to Scrooge or to anyone who can see it, but it was produced with an infinite, indignant effect. For again, Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of life. His face had not the harsh, rigid lines of years later. But it had begun to wear of the signs of care and avarice, There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in his eyes which slowed the passion that had taken root. And where the shadow of the growing trees would fall, he was not alone, but set by his side was a fair young woman in a mourning dress, in whose eyes there were tears, which left the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past.
It matters little to you, very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tired to do, I have known just come to grieve.
What idol does displace you?
A golden one.
This was even handed dealing of the world. There is nothing on which it was so hard, so properly. And there was nothing it professes to condemn which such servilely as the pursuit of wealth.
You fear the world too much. All your other hopes have merged into a hope of being beyond the chances of its sordid reproach. I have seen your noble aspirations fall off one by one until the master position, green, engross you. Have I not?
What then? Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? I am not changed towards you.
Am I?
Our contract is an old one. And it was made when we were both poor and content to be so until in a good season we can prove your worldly fortune by other patient industry.
You were changed. You are changing. When it was made, you were another man.
I was a boy!
Your own feelings tells you that you are not what you are. I am. That which promised happiness when we were one in heart is fraught with misery. Now that we are two, how often and how keenly I have thought of this. I will not say. It is enough that I will have thought of it and can release you.
Have I ever sought release?
In words, no, never.
In what then?
In a changed nature, in an altered spirit, in another atmosphere of life, another hope as its great end, in everything that made my love of any worth or value in your sought. If this had never been between us, tell me, would you sink out? Would you sink me out and try to win me now? Oh no. No.
You think not?
I would gladly think otherwise if I could. Heaven knows, when I have learned a truth like this, I knew how strong and irresistible it must be. But if you were free today, tomorrow, yesterday, I believe that you would have chose a doorless girl. You who, in your very confidence with her, waste everything by grin. by gain or choosing her. If for a moment you were false enough to your one guiding principle to do so, did I not know that your repentless and regrets would have surely followed? I do, and I release you with a full heart for the love of him you once were.
You take things so much gratitude, because soon after you make things so much of an effort. Because I take things so much grantedly, like everything I take, to make things so much effort with my own personal life.
You may. The memory of what its past half makes me hope you will. Have pain in this. A very, very brief time, and you'll dismiss the recollection of it gladly as an unprofitable dream from which it happened, from that makes you awoke. You may be happy in life that you've been chosen. I will release you.
Spirit, show me no more. Conduct me home. Why do you delight to torture me? One shadow more. No more. No more. I don't wish to see it. Show me no more. But the relentless ghost pinned him in both his arms and forced him to observe what happened next. There was another scene in place, a room not very large or handsome, but full of confront. Near to the winter fire sat a young, beautiful girl. So like the last that Scrooge believed, it was the same until he saw her. Now a comely Madron sitting opposite her daughter. The noise in this room was perfectly tremendous, and there were more children there than Scrooge in his agitated state of mind could count. And unlike the celebrated heart in a poem, there were not 40 children conducting themselves like one, but every child was conducting itself like 40. The consequences were abhorrence, believe beyond, but no one seemed to care. On the contrary, the mother and daughter laughed heartily and enjoyed it very much. And the latter be one of them. Though I could never been so rude. No. It would have been worth of all the world have crushed that braided hair and tore it down. And for the precious little shoe, I would have plucked it off. God bless my soul to save my life. I said, measuring her wrist in sports, as they did. A young, bold, broad. I couldn't have done it. I should have expended my arm to have grown round it for a punishment, and never came straight again. And yet I should have dearly, like I own, to have touched her lips, to have questioned her, that she might have opened them,
To have looked upon the lashes of her downcast eyes and never raise a blush. To have let loose waves of hair and inch of welch, each of which would have be a keepsake, beyond price. In short, I would have liked, I do confess, to have a lighter license of a child, and yet to have been man enough to know its value. But now a knock on the door was hard, and such a rush immediately ensured that she was laughing face and plundered dress was blown towards it's a century of a flushed and vulturous group, just in time to greet the father, who came home attended by a man laden with Christmas toys and presents. Then the shouting and the struggling and the on-sight was made on defenseless porter, descaling him with chairs and ladders to drive into his pockets, despoiled him of brown paper parcels, hold on tight by his cravat, hug him round around his neck, pummel his back, and kick his legs in a irresistible affection. The shouts of wonder and delight at which the development of every package was received. The terrible announcement that the baby had been taken, in the act putting the doll's frying pan into his mouth, and was more than expected of having swallowed by the feverish turkey glued on a wooden platter. The immense relief of finding this was a false alarm. The joy and gratitude and ecstasy, they were all indescribable alike. It was enough that by a degree the children and their emotions get out of the parlor, and by one stare at a time up to the top of the house where they went to bed, and so subside. Now Scrooge looked on more attentively than ever, than the master of a house, having his daughter learning fondly on him, sat down with her and her mother and his own friends, of her own, with her and her mother and his own fireside. And when he thought that such another creature, quite as graceful, as full of promise, might have called him a father, and having the springtime and haggard winter of his life, his sight grew very dim indeed. Belle, I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon. Who is it? Guess. How can I? I don't know. Mr. Scrooge? Mr. Scrooge it was. I passed his office window, and it was not shut up, and he held a candle inside. I could scarcely help seeing him. His partner lies upon the point of death, I hear. And there he is, sat alone, quite alone in the world, I do believe. Spirit, I can't be here. Leave me. Remove me from this place. I told you these were the shadows of things that have been,
If they were what they are, do not blame them. Blame them. Do not blame me. Remove me. I cannot bear it. Why is that? Because you're afraid you want to see something what's happening next? Is that it? Well, maybe. It's just... I just can't handle with this. It's a dark past of mine, so I just can't. Just leave me. Take me back. Harm me no longer. Ah. You sure you want to take things so much effort with it? Well, if this is what you wanted, then I don't give a matter. Then I guess I'll take it back. Your own bedroom. And maybe by the next night, at the same hour, another ghost will show you something after the past. Another spirit. Wait, what are you doing? Don't worry about it. It won't hurt long. My goodness.